I watched the news clip of Evelyn Pierce's stepbrother winning the Grammy for Song of the Year 73 times. Seeing how proud Evelyn looked on screen, clutching the trophy, she turned to me later, hugging me as she offered comfort. Caleb, don't be envious of others. You just have hysterical mutism. Surely, this current therapist isn't good enough. I'll find you a new one. We will cure you, and you will speak again. I forced a smile, signing to her that I was fine. But inside, it felt like I was drowning in bile. 3 years ago, I was accidentally caught up in a violent mugging. Although Evelyn arrived in time to save me from the attacker, the psychological trauma was severe, leaving me unable to speak. For 3 years, Evelyn had hired hundreds of therapists for me, yet none could cure me. Just when I was losing hope, I accidentally overheard a conversation between her and her friend, Chloe Vance. Chloe laughed with a cruel playfulness. Evelyn, you really are a master actress. It's been 3 years, and Caleb Reed still hasn't figured out that the mugging back then was just a scene you paid people to stage. He hasn't realized he's mute because you had his vocal cords transplanted into Julian. Chloe took a sip of her drink. If I didn't know he used to be a top-tier associate in Big Law, I'd think he was an idiot. Evelyn's face went cold. If you speak about Caleb without a filter again, we don't need to be friends. After Chloe apologized and backed down, Evelyn's expression softened. Transplanting Caleb's vocal cords to Julian was necessary because Julian made a mistake by setting that fire. But that doesn't stop me from loving Caleb. He's already paid the price. Even if he can never be a lawyer again, I will support him for the rest of his life. Every word drifting from the study felt like a rusty nail being hammered into my heart. It turned out that for 3 years, the therapists Evelyn hired were just part of the show. She had personally arranged for my vocal cords to be removed. She knew there was zero possibility of me ever speaking again, yet she lied to me, giving me false hope. The pain made it hard to breathe, but I didn't forget to pull out my phone and hit record. The conversation in the study continued. Chloe teased, "You should just say that support him for life bit to me. Don't let Julian know, or I'm afraid your crazy brother will try to commit suicide again. Speaking of which, are you really decided on that matter? Julian won't take it well." Evelyn's tone was composed. "Yes, the venue is already being set up. I'll distract Julian when the time comes. I won't give him a fourth chance to kill himself." I didn't know what venue they were talking about, but my mind instinctively flashed back to Julian Pierce's 3 previous suicide attempts. That year, I had just become a junior associate at a prestigious white shoe law firm in New York. I accompanied Mr. Harrison, a senior partner, to a merger negotiation meeting. It was the first time I met Evelyn Pierce, a titan in the financial world. She wore a perfectly tailored dress, her hair immaculate, radiating a mature, cold aura. When she looked down at documents, her profile was sharp, but sensing my gaze, she looked up and curved her lips in a smile. In that instant, my heart skipped a beat. Mr. Harrison noticed my reaction. During the break, he lowered his voice and warned me, "Caleb, don't get involved with Evelyn Pierce. She has a stepbrother who is famously unstable. I heard he confessed his love to Evelyn multiple times and was rejected. A while back, he slashed his wrists. If you get caught between those siblings, losing your skin will be the least of your worries." That was the first time I heard about Julian's suicide attempts. I nodded obediently, burying that spark of attraction. But I never expected Evelyn would come for me first. She would silently keep me company while I worked overtime on merger documents. She would stage accidental encounters on weekends, inviting me to the French restaurant I'd been dying to try. She even drove through a torrential downpour to pick me up when I was stranded on a business trip. Under Evelyn's gentle offensive, I gradually forgot Mr. Harrison's warning and fell hopelessly in love. The day we made it official, Evelyn said she had a surprise for me. I stood in the private room of a restaurant, holding a bouquet of roses I bought for her, waiting from 7:00 p.m. to 10:00 p.m. Instead of her, I got a call from her assistant. "Mr. Reed," Julian swallowed a bottle of pills. "Ms. Pierce is at the hospital. She can't get away." That was Julian's second suicide attempt. I sat in the empty private room all night, hugging the wilting roses. The next day, Evelyn came to find me, her eyes bloodshot. Guiltily, she told me, "I'm sorry, Caleb. I didn't handle Julian's situation well. I made you suffer. I promise there won't be a next time." I believed her, but I didn't expect the next time to come so fast. Julian tried to kill himself a 3rd time. He accidentally walked in on Evelyn and me kissing. That afternoon, he climbed onto the roof of their penthouse. When Evelyn got the call, she was about to spend Valentine's Day with me. She glanced at me, her tone rushed. "Caleb, I have to go check on Julian. I'll be back soon." This time, she disappeared for 2 weeks. It was long enough that I prepared myself for a breakup, assuming she would choose her stepbrother. So when Evelyn finally returned to my side, I returned all her gifts and initiated the breakup myself. Unexpectedly, Evelyn's eyes turned red. She threw herself into my arms, hugging me so tight it felt like she wanted to merge me in her bones. Caleb, let's not break up, okay? If you don't want Julian disturbing us, I can arrange for him to go abroad. I agreed. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. The second month after Julian was sent abroad, his mother died of a sudden heart attack. When Julian rushed back, he only saw a cold tombstone. He cried until he lost his voice, pointing at Evelyn and screaming, "It's all your fault. If you hadn't sent me away, I would have seen my mom one last time." That night, Evelyn stood by the grave until dawn. When she came back, she held me, her voice hoarse. "Caleb, was I too cruel to Julian?" At the time, I patted her back to comfort her. I didn't know that from that day on, her heart would be filled only with guilt toward Julian. She began to indulge Julian without limits. Julian would fake illness during our dates, and she would leave me without a second thought to be with him. Julian maliciously shaved my head while I was napping, and she only bought me a wig and told me to let it go. On my birthday, Julian even came to my apartment and set it on fire. In the raging flames, Evelyn rushed up, but the first person she shielded was Julian. After the fire was put out, Julian hid behind Evelyn, pointing at me. "Evelyn, Caleb set the fire. He's jealous of the attention you've given me lately, so he tried to burn me to death on his birthday. I'm fine, but because of the smoke inhalation, my throat is ruined. Evelyn, I want Caleb to pay me back with his vocal cords." When he said this, his voice was extremely raspy, making him sound pitiful and innocent. My eyes widened. "Julian, what are you talking about? You clearly set the fire." My words were cut off by Evelyn. She rubbed her temples, looking exhausted. "This ends here. I will handle everything afterwards." She gave me a reassuring look, and I actually felt relieved. I thought she knew Julian's madness and wouldn't believe him. I never imagined that her handling it meant hiring people to stage a mugging, and while I was traumatized and disoriented, she had my vocal cords removed. The recording light was still on. In the study, Chloe sighed. "Speaking of which, you initially pursued Caleb Reed, just to use him to make Julian give up on you. Who knew you'd actually fall for the guy?" My eyes began to sting. It wasn't just these 3 years. Evelyn had been lying to me from the very beginning. Unable to listen anymore, I stumbled away from the study door. Back in the bedroom, I dug out my laptop from 3 years ago. I booted it up and logged into a long dormant email account. In the recipient field, I typed the name, Audrey Blake. She was my rival back at the law firm. We had been fierce opponents in court, neither giving an inch. But undeniably, her professional capability was top tier, and she was a person of integrity. In the email I wrote, "Ms. Blake, this is Caleb Reed. I have an intentional bodily injury case that requires your help." I was going to make Evelyn and Julian pay for what they did. "What are you spacing out for?" Evelyn plucked the tablet from my hands, closing the news page about Julian's award. "Julian organized a private victory party tonight. Do you want to come with me?" I snapped back to reality, remembering the meeting I booked with Audrey Blake. I started to sign a refusal. Evelyn saw my intent, pressed down my hand, and pulled me into her arms, her tone gentle. "Go. You stay home all day seeing no one. It's easy to get depressed. Don't worry, I'll be right by your side. I won't let anyone bully you." With that, she gave me no chance to refuse, immediately ordering her team to prepare my outfit. The party was held in the ballroom of a top-tier hotel in Manhattan. It was brilliant with lights and crowded with elites. When we arrived, Julian was surrounded by a group of socialites, shining like a star amidst the moon. Seeing us, he immediately pushed through the crowd, walked over, and affectionately linked arms with Evelyn. "Sis, you're finally here. I've been waiting forever." He squeezed me away from Evelyn until I was standing aside, like a total stranger. Only then did he pretend to notice me, a malicious smile rising on his lips. "Caleb Reed, I thought you wouldn't come to my party. I thought I wouldn't get your verbal congratulations. Oh wait, I forgot. Even if you came, I wouldn't get your verbal congratulations. After all, you're mute. You can't speak." I instinctively clenched my fists. Since I lost my speech 3 years ago, Julian would often mock me for being mute. Back then, I thought he was just being cruel. Now I realized he was bragging. He was showing off that Evelyn could remove my vocal cords without hesitation just because of one of his lies. I suppressed the surging emotions and noticed Evelyn frowning. She lightly tugged Julian's sleeve, her tone helpless. "Don't be so blunt." Julian smirked triumphantly. I watched their interaction, my gaze finally landing on Julian's wrist. He was wearing an emerald watch. The circular gem was the size of a pigeon egg. It was the exact one Evelyn had bid 8 figures for at Sotheby's auction last year, intended for me. At the time, the gem was just a loose stone. Evelyn had specially hired a designer. I had asked about it twice later, and she said it was still being processed. I didn't expect it had long been on Julian's wrist. Evelyn followed my gaze, her red lips pursing. She spoke awkwardly. Caleb, don't overthink it. Julian is the star tonight. The party needed a piece of jewelry to hold the room, and the designer just delivered the watch yesterday, so I let him borrow it for one night. After the watch is returned, what belongs to you won't change. Her words were flawless, but I only found it funny. Julian was a top pop star, a newly minted Grammy winner. Major jewelry brands were lining up to collaborate with him. He didn't need a stepsister to take a watch meant for her boyfriend and give it to him, but she gave it anyway. Later, when this watch, now tagged with Julian's label, returned to my wrist, no one could say she did anything wrong. I forced a smile and signed to Evelyn. It's fine. Just give it to Julian. I didn't want it anymore. Seeing this, a flash of triumph crossed Julian's eyes. His tone turned arrogant. Caleb Reed, I won't take your stuff for free. I specially prepared a gift for you. He clapped his hands, summoning an assistant. He took a beautifully wrapped box and handed it to me. I didn't take it. Evelyn reached out and took it first, opening the box to reveal a palm-sized object. It was a talking button for pets, popular on TikTok recently. The plastic shell had a cute bone pattern printed on it. Julian smiled and explained, a lot of people buy these for dogs now. You press it, and it makes sounds like eat or play. It's super convenient. As soon as I saw it, I thought it suited you perfectly, Caleb. With this, you won't have to use that sign language no one understands. He sounded delighted, as if he were truly happy I could finally communicate. But I knew perfectly well he was comparing me to a dog. Evelyn seemed oblivious to the humiliation, looking at him gratefully. Julian, that was thoughtful of you. That's not all. I specially recorded Caleb's voice onto it. Julian smiled, even wider, his finger pressing the button. The next second, a piercing, desolate scream exploded in the banquet hall. My breath hitched violently. The voice recorded on the button was mine, from 3 years ago, when a mugger Evelyn hired cornered me in an alley. It was the help. I screamed when I was on the brink of a breakdown, thinking I was really going to be murdered. A female guest nearby was startled by the sudden scream, spilling her champagne. Julian laughed even harder, clapping his hands. Caleb, listen, I specially found someone to save your old voice recording. This way, when you press the button, Evelyn can hear your voice. Aren't I considerate? I felt my blood freeze, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. Evelyn recognized where the sound came from too, but she just frowned. Julian, stop fooling around. Guests are here. There was no blame in her tone, just the sound of someone coaxing a tantrum-throwing child. Then she turned to me, reaching out to wipe the moisture from the corner of my eye, her voice softening. Caleb, Julian is just joking. Don't take it to heart. Joking, turning my trauma into a toy, using my scream of terror as entertainment. This was a joke. I jerked my head away from her hand and took a step back. The pet communication button fell to the ground, rolling to Julian's feet. Julian's face instantly darkened. He looked at Evelyn with grievance. Sis, I kindly gave Caleb a gift and he threw it? Am I an eyesore to him? Maybe I should just go die. As he spoke, he smashed a wine glass and made a move to slash his wrist. Evelyn quickly stopped him, grabbing his hand tight. Her face darkened as she looked at me. Caleb, Julian is the guest of honor today. Don't make him unhappy. Pick up the gift, apologize to Julian, and we'll consider this over. It was always like this. As long as Julian threatened suicide, no matter what happened, Evelyn would always indulge him. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart, bent down, and picked up the button, clutching in my hand. The plastic edge dug painfully into my palm, but that pain was nothing compared to the coldness in my heart. After signing an apology, I turned and walked out of the banquet hall. Evelyn called my name from behind, her voice urgent, but she didn't chase after me. She still had to comfort the suicidal Julian. Walking to the entrance, I checked the message on my phone and turned toward the hotel parking garage. In the VIP lane of the parking garage, Audrey Blake leaned against a black sedan. She wore a tailored dress, her expression cool. Seeing me, a flicker of surprise passed through her eyes. Caleb Reed, I nodded, took out my phone, and typed, "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Audrey glanced at it and said, "Get in the car first. It's not convenient to talk here." I followed her into the car. The interior was quiet. "I haven't seen you in 3 years. How did you become like this?" Audrey looked at me, her tone complex. I knew why it was complex. 3 years ago, I was the youngest associate at a big law firm, high-spirited in court, stating my case with such logic that opposing counsel would be left speechless. Back then, I was so proud. Now I was lifeless, unable to speak. Forget stating a case. I couldn't even defend myself. I didn't answer Audrey. I just played the recording on my phone for her. Audrey put on headphones and listened intently. The recording wasn't long, only a few minutes, but her face grew darker and darker. After listening, she took off the headphones, her eyes full of anger. This Evelyn Pierce. She's not human. But then she hesitated. However, is there such a surgery as a vocal cord transplant? I shook my head. No. There's never a vocal cord transplant surgery. Vocal cords cannot be transplanted like kidneys. Julian becoming a singing sensation wasn't because of the vocal cords he took from me. It was because his own vocal cords were never damaged in the first place. So when he framed me for arson and ruining his voice back then, it was a lie that could have been easily exposed. Evelyn knew it was a lie, yet she still unhesitatingly staged the scene to remove my vocal cords. Audrey looked at me with pity, her tone turning serious. To sue for intentional bodily injury, this recording isn't enough. We need the surgical records from the hospital where your vocal cords were removed, as well as the consent form. I nodded and typed on my phone. I will find a way to get those things. Good. I'll start preparing on my end. Audrey smiled. Caleb, pleasure working with you. Just as I wanted to type, pleasure working with you, my phone suddenly rang. It was Evelyn. I pressed the reject button and showed the typed words to Audrey. When Audrey dropped me back at the hotel entrance, people were starting to filter out of the banquet hall. Looks like the party is over, Audrey said. Shall I walk you in? I shook my head and typed. No need, I'll go in myself. I'll contact you when I have news. Just as I got out of the car and walked into the hotel lobby, I heard a chaotic noise. Julian. We want to see Julian. Julian, baby. Sign an autograph for us. A swarm of fans holding LED signs and posters blocked the hotel entrance, emotional and loud. Clearly, the party address had leaked and Julian Stans had chased him here. I was squeezed into the crowd. Looking up, I saw Evelyn tightly protecting Julian as they walked out, using her slender body to block him from harm. She evidently saw me, squeezed in the crowd, and seemed to mouth something to me, but it was all drowned out by the fans' screams. They walked away quickly, and the fans surged forward to follow. I was shoved by the crowd, struggling to keep my balance. Someone near me seemed to say, "Is this the guy?" The next second, I was tripped and fell to the ground. Countless feet stepped on my body and my hands. Pain hit me like a tidal wave. I wanted to crawl up, but the people around me kept surging forward. I was pinned to the ground, unable to even lift my head. I struggled to make a sound, but my vocal cords were gone. I couldn't emit a single noise. In the panic, I touched the cracked pet communication button in my pocket. The gift Julian used to humiliate me had now become my only lifeline. With trembling fingers, I pressed the button. Ush! Help! A broken, recorded scream came from the button, but it was completely drowned out by the surrounding screams and shoving. No one heard. No one cared. One person after another stepped on my hand. I curled my fingers, my nails digging deep into the cracks of the floor, my hands covered in dust and blood. Through my blurred vision, I saw Evelyn protecting Julian as they got into a black car. As the car window slowly rolled up, Julian turned his head and glanced in my direction. The corner of his mouth hooked up in a faint, malicious smile. The car engine roared, and they vanished into the night. I lay on the ground, feeling a sharp, agonizing pain in my ribs. My vision gradually went black. The smell of disinfectant drilled into my nose. I was still trapped in a semi-comatose chaos. I heard a nurse's voice by my ear. Is this Ms. Evelyn Pierce? Mr. Caleb Reed was accidentally trampled at the hotel entrance. His condition is very critical. The ambulance is taking him to City General now. A voice came faintly from the other end of the phone. Evelyn's tone was more urgent than usual. Give me the address. I'll come right away. Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Julian's shrill voice. Sis, if you go see him, I'll jump out of the car right now. I forbid you to go. You have to stay with me. The nurse's voice paused. She must have heard the threat too. Immediately after, Evelyn's voice grew weaker, tinged with compromising helplessness. Julian, stop it. I won't go. I'll stay with you. Don't get agitated. I didn't hear the rest clearly. My consciousness felt like it was swept away by a tide. Before sinking completely into darkness, I only felt a hollowness in my chest, so deep that even the physical pain became numb. When I woke up again, the sky outside was bright. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting fragmented shadows on the blanket, but I felt no warmth. A nurse stood by the bed, holding a clipboard. Her tone held a touch of sympathy. Mr. Reed, you're finally awake. You broke 3 ribs, one almost punctured your lung. Luckily, we resuscitated you in time. I couldn't make a sound, so I mouthed, Where is Evelyn? The nurse's eyes darkened. She placed the clipboard on the nightstand. Ms. Pierce didn't come. After we brought you in yesterday, we contacted her again. She said her brother was also injured and is in a VIP ward, so she had to stay with him. By the way, you need to pay the hospitalization deposit. There are follow-up checks and treatments. Looking at the bill the nurse handed me, I only felt a stinging in my eyes. Evelyn knew how badly I was hurt. Yet not only did she not come to take a look, she didn't even pay the basic hospital fees for me. She only cared about Julian. I slowly raised my hand and pointed at the nurse's phone. The nurse paused, then quickly realized and handed me my own phone from the nightstand. After paying the bill, I typed with my uninjured hand, Can you help me pull my surgical record from this hospital for the past 3 years, as well as the surgery consent forms? When Evelyn saved me from the mugging 3 years ago, she had sent me to this very hospital for examination. So, it was almost certain the vocal cord removal surgery was done here too. The nurse was stunned. The past 3 years? What do you need that for? I have a use for it. I looked at her, my eyes firm. Please. She hesitated but nodded. Okay, give me your ID. I'll check for you. In the afternoon, the nurse brought me the records. It was a thick stack. Tucked inside was a consent form for a vocal cordectomy. The signature in the next of kin/guardian spot was Evelyn Pierce. The date of the surgery matched exactly the day I encountered the mugging. The evidence was undeniable. Even though I'd already guessed the truth, my heart still felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. It took a long while before I could breathe properly again. Just as I took a photo of the evidence and sent it to Audrey, the ward door was suddenly pushed open. Evelyn walked in. Seeing me, guilt appeared on her face. Caleb, I'm sorry I'm late. Julian got hurt yesterday too. I had to stay with him, so I couldn't come to see you in time. I didn't respond. She sat down, about to say something else, when her gaze fell on the surgical records nearby. What is this? I gave her a flat look and signed. My surgical records. Evelyn picked them up. The first thing she saw was the report of my ribs being broken by the stampede. A flash of heartache crossed her eyes, and she didn't dare to look further. I wasn't surprised by her reaction at all. She was always like this. She loved me enough to hate seeing me hurt, yet she could indulge Julian in hurting me again and again. Mockery flashed in my eyes, and I ignored her. For the next day, Evelyn stayed by my side almost every step of the way, personally feeding me water, changing my dressings, and holding my hand tightly with extreme distress when the pain became unbearable. But I felt no emotion. My heart was a wasteland. Julian couldn't sit still for long. The next day, he came looking for us in a hospital gown. Sis, I'm injured too. Why are you only keeping Caleb company and not me? Come back with me now. Evelyn looked exhausted. Julian, stop making a scene. You only have a scraped knee, but Caleb has broken ribs. He needs company more than you right now. It was a perfectly reasonable statement, but Julian's face changed. So, does that mean if I get hurt worse than Caleb, you'll be willing to stay with me? With that, he rushed toward the window, acting like he was going to jump. Evelyn quickly got up to stop him. He took the opportunity to grab Evelyn's hand, his tone aggrieved. Sis, I just want someone to be with me too. Can you not be so cruel to me? If you don't want to leave this room, then Caleb and I will switch rooms. I watched Evelyn's expression change from hesitation to compromise in just a few seconds. She didn't even ask for my opinion, sighing helplessly. Whatever you want. The nurse was quickly called to switch the rooms. Seeing me on the bed, she couldn't help but remind them. Are you sure about switching? Mr. Reed has broken ribs. He shouldn't be moved easily. Evelyn looked at the pitiful Julian in her arms and nodded. Switch. Before I was wheeled out on the gurney to Julian's room, he cast a mocking glance at me. I soon found out what that glance meant. The bedding on Julian's bed was completely soaked. He had prepared for the room swap, pouring water all over the bed beforehand. I want to call a nurse to change it, but the call button was broken and I couldn't make any sound. Outside the room, it was noisy. Doctors and nurses were discussing where to eat after their shift. Inside, I screamed silently. The wet, cold sheets seeped through my hospital gown into my skin. The broken ribs felt like they were being stabbed by ice picks. Every breath was agonizing pain. I wanted to move, but the slightest movement made my vision go black from pain. I could only wrap the blanket tighter, but the damp cold entangled me like vines, drilling from my skin into my bones, making me shiver uncontrollably. By midnight, I developed a fever. My consciousness was heavy, and I didn't even have the strength to open my eyes. Vaguely, The bedding seemed to be changed, and soon someone held my hand. That hand was warm, a warmth I once craved. Evelyn's voice rang in my ear, tinged with guilt. Caleb, I've wronged you. I prepared everything. When you get better, I will compensate you. I won't let you suffer any grievances again. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't even have the strength to pull the corner of my mouth. Compensate. She destroyed my voice, destroyed my legal career, let me be publicly humiliated at the party, and now let me lie in a wet, cold bed until I had a fever. What could her so-called compensation possibly fix? I didn't need her compensation. I just wanted her and Julian to pay the price. I closed my eyes tight, letting my consciousness sink into darkness again. For the next few days of hospitalization, Evelyn would come to see me every night after Julian fell asleep. She would tell stories to lull me to sleep and wake up instantly if I moved a finger, asking what I needed. I remained cold and indifferent. Audrey was already organizing the evidence. It was time for things between Evelyn and me to end. On the day of my discharge, Evelyn came to pick me up. I was surprised not to see Julian in the car. Evelyn opened the door and smiled at me. Caleb, I'm taking you somewhere. I thought she was taking me to see another therapist, so I got in indifferently. But unexpectedly, she drove to an open-air garden. The garden was filled with white roses, arranged in a giant heart shape with candles in the center. In the distance, someone was playing the violin, a melody I used to love singing. Evelyn took my hand, walked to the center of the heart, took out a red velvet box from her pocket, and looked at me deeply. Caleb, I know you suffer a lot because of Julian before, but trust me, it won't happen anymore. Will you marry me? I will spend my whole life making it up to you. I looked at the diamond ring in her hand and suddenly smiled. I smiled until tears almost came out. So when she told Chloe about preparing the venue, she was preparing a proposal venue. So her compensation was this. But Evelyn, the compensation I want isn't this. I didn't take the ring. Instead, I signed. Where is Julian? Did you distract him? She paused, then nodded. I sent him abroad to watch a fashion show. He should be at the airport by now. Caleb, don't worry. The time ahead belongs only to the two of us. The next second, Evelyn's assistant ran over holding a phone, urgent. Ms. Pierce, it's bad. Julian just attempted suicide at the airport. The news is trending. Evelyn looked at the screen. The #1 trending topic was Pop King Julian Pierce suicide at airport, followed by a breaking tag. The comment section was full of photos posted by witnesses of Julian covered in blood. Evelyn's face went pale instantly. She took out her phone to call Julian, but as soon as she unlocked it, she found a voice message Julian had left her. She tapped play, and Julian's miserable, broken voice rang out instantly. Sis, is what Caleb said true? You're going to propose to him? You sent me away specifically so I wouldn't disturb you. Sis, am I an eyesore to you? If that's the case, I'll just go die. Then you won't have to work so hard to get rid of me ever again. The voice message cut off abruptly. My brow had just started to furrow when Evelyn violently threw the diamond ring aside. She grabbed me by the collar, her eyes bloodshot with rage. Caleb Reed, did you tell Julian about the proposal? You knew he couldn't handle the stress, so why did you deliberately hurt him? The collar tightened around my neck. I quickly couldn't breathe. Evelyn seemed not to notice my face turning red, gritting her teeth in anger. If anything happens to Julian, I will never forgive you. With that, she let go and turned to leave. I fell to the ground in a wretched heap, gasping for large mouthfuls of air, my whole body trembling. Evelyn had almost strangled me just now. The violin melody continued, sounding incredibly ironic. When I caught my breath, I exhaustedly left the proposal venue and went home. As soon as I opened the door, I was grabbed by 2 bodyguards in black suits and shoved into a car. The car sped straight to the hospital. At the hospital, Evelyn stood outside the emergency room, her eyes red. Seeing me, her face was cold. Julian needs a blood transfusion. The hospital blood bank is low. You have the same blood type. Go donate blood for him. Her tone allowed no refusal, as if I wasn't a patient just discharged from the hospital, but a blood bag ready for use. Before I could even refuse, she anxiously dragged me to the donation center. I was taken by a nurse to draw blood. Watching the bright red blood flow through the tube into the bag, I felt cold all over. A flash of reluctance passed through Evelyn's eyes, but she ultimately said coldly, "This is the price for hurting Julian. Remember, there won't be a next time. When Julian wakes up, go apologize to him, and we'll consider this over." I shook my head. I wouldn't apologize anymore. The one who should apologize was never me. Seeing this, Evelyn's face darkened again. If you don't apologize, the proposal is on hold. Whatever. I never planned to accept the proposal anyway. After the blood draw, I I stumbled a bit when I stood up. Evelyn moved to support me, but quickly pulled her hand back. I didn't care. I turned and walked out. Behind me, Evelyn's voice sounded exasperated. Caleb Reed, for every day you don't apologize to Julian, the proposal is delayed by a day. Think about it. My steps paused, but I didn't look back. My phone pinged. I looked down. It was a message from Audrey. Everything is ready. The chain of evidence is complete. We can file the lawsuit. Looking at that message, the stone that had been hanging in my heart for so long finally landed. I walked out of the hospital, went home, packed all my luggage and left. The night wind was cool, blowing on my face, making me feel incredibly lucid. 3 years of deception, 3 years of pain and grievance were finally coming to an end. Evelyn, Julian, it was time for you to pay back the hurt you caused me. After Julian's emergency treatment ended, Evelyn stayed by his bedside, but was somewhat distracted. Although Julian's condition was critical, this was already the 4th time she had sat by his bed after a suicide attempt. So, aside from worry, she mostly felt numb. What lingered in her mind now was the look in Caleb's eyes before he left. Eyes with no emotion. Over the past 3 years, she had often demanded Caleb apologize for things involving Julian. Although Caleb apologized every time, she could tell he was unwilling and felt wronged. She could read the hurt in his eyes, but she had to side with Julian, because she owed Julian. She never thought there would be a day when Caleb would refuse to apologize, and those aggrieved emotions would vanish from his eyes. It was as if he no longer cared about any of this and was about to leave her. The thought made Evelyn's heart clench, but she quickly dismissed the idea. How could he? Caleb had been mute for 3 years. She knew how dependent he was on her. He couldn't possibly leave her. She felt a bit more settled when her phone suddenly rang. Evelyn's lips curved slightly. Sure enough, Caleb still cared about her as before. Even if he refused to apologize earlier, he would eventually bow his head. See? He was calling already. She waited patiently, letting it ring almost to the end before picking up. Only then did she realize the caller wasn't Caleb, but the manager of the proposal venue. Frowning, she answered, "What is it?" The manager spoke dutifully. "Ms. Pierce, when the staff was cleaning up the site, they found your engagement ring. Would you like to send someone to pick it up, or should I mail it to you?" Evelyn froze. The engagement ring? She had thrown it on the ground and walked away, assuming Caleb would pick it up. He didn't pick it up. Her heart clenched again, an inexplicable unease rising from the depths of her chest. "Mail it to me." After a long silence, she replied to the manager in a hoarse voice. Hanging up, Evelyn felt agitated. She was just about to go out for some air when she turned around and found Julian staring at her with red eyes. "Sis, even after I ended up like this, you still want to propose to that man?" Julian's voice was sharp, broken, and manic. He sat up emotionally. "If I have to watch the person I love most marry another man, I'd rather just die right now." Saying this, he rushed straight off the bed, ran to the hospital room balcony, and acted like he was going to jump. "Julian!" Evelyn shouted sharply. Julian stood on the edge of the balcony railing, his eyes bloodshot. "Sis, I was the one by your side first. You always spoil me the most since we were kids. Why isn't it me standing by your side in the end? I've tolerated Caleb Reed for 3 years. I don't want to tolerate him anymore. Sis, break up with Caleb right now, or I'll jump." As he spoke, half his body leaned out over the railing. Evelyn's pupils constricted in panic. "Julian, don't be rash. Then promise me you'll break up with Caleb. I forbid you to marry him." Julian screamed. Evelyn felt her temples throbbing violently. She took a deep breath and finally compromised. "Okay, I promise you." Julian smiled, pulled his body back, turned around, and hugged Evelyn. "Sis, I knew you loved me the most." Evelyn stayed in his arms, her heart sinking lower and lower. The assistant suddenly pushed the door open, holding the engagement ring Evelyn had painstakingly prepared, which had just arrived via courier. "Ms. Pierce," the venue manager mailed the ring over. "How would you like to handle?" Before he could finish, Julian snatched the ring and threw it into the trash can. The assistant gasped. This what?" Julian glared viciously at the assistant. "My sister is breaking up with that man. This ring is useless. The trash can is its final home." The assistant looked at Evelyn at a loss. She sighed almost imperceptibly and signaled for him to leave. The assistant opened his mouth, wanting to say, "Ms. Pierce, if you keep indulging Julian like this, you will definitely regret it." But in the end, he said nothing and turned out of the room. For the next few days, Julian clung to Evelyn like a sticky child, not allowing her to leave his side for a moment. Even if she had to use the restroom, she had to tell him in advance. Evelyn didn't get angry. She patiently agreed to all his requests, indulging him completely. Only late at night, when Julian fell asleep, would Evelyn check her phone. It had been several days. Let alone an apology message, Caleb hadn't sent her anything. She gradually grew anxious, the unease in her heart intensifying. Just as Evelyn couldn't sit still anymore and got up, preparing to go home under the cover of night to see what Caleb was doing, Julian's ghostly voice suddenly came from a dim room. "Sis, you still can't let go of Caleb, can you? Saying you'd break up was just lying to me, right?" The room light turned on, illuminating Julian's eyes full of paranoia. Meeting that gaze, Evelyn, afraid of triggering him, quickly explained, "No, Julian, it's just that Caleb provoked you into suicide before. I want him to come and apologize to you." As soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted it. But Julian immediately smiled. "So that's it. I knew you wouldn't lie to me." He grabbed her hand. Then Evelyn almost really died. "An apology from Caleb isn't enough. He has to pay back double for the suffering I endured. Last time, it was vocal cords. How about ears this time?" Evelyn agreed absently, but panic rose in her heart. Whether Caleb would come to apologize was uncertain. She always felt Caleb was soft-hearted. In the past, no matter how overboard Julian went, as long as she lowered her head and coaxed him, he would always compromise. Just like 3 years ago, when he brought up breaking up, she hugged him with red eyes, and he softened and stayed. But this time, since they parted at the blood donation center, there had been no news from Caleb. She looked at Julian, who was staring unblinkingly at her from the hospital bed, rubbed her brow, and finally decided to have her assistant check on Caleb's movements the next day. But the next day, before she could instruct her assistant, he arrived at the hospital first. "Ms. Pierce, a package arrived for you at the office. It's an envelope, and the sender is Mr. Reed. I thought you might need it, so I brought it over." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. Her fingers trembled slightly as they grazed the edge of the envelope. She thought Caleb had compromised, perhaps written a letter or sent something hinting he was willing to apologize. She tore open the envelope quickly. But when the papers inside slid out, the anticipation on her face froze instantly. It was a court subpoena. The plaintiff field clearly read Caleb Reed. The defendant field bore her name, Evelyn Pierce. Under cause of action, 4 cold words were printed: intentional infliction of bodily harm. Pinned beneath the subpoena was a sticky note in Caleb's handwriting. The strokes were sharp, lacking his former gentleness. "Evelyn, the 3-year show is over. You owe me. See you in court." Evelyn's face went white. Did Caleb know? Did he know he wasn't unable to speak due to trauma, but that his vocal cords were gone? Evelyn's hand holding the subpoena couldn't stop shaking. The edge of the paper sliced her fingertip, drawing a bead of blood, but she didn't notice. She suddenly remembered Chloe teasing that Caleb was an idiot in the study that day. But looking at it now, the idiot was her. She thought she had hidden everything well. She thought Caleb would always stay by her side, dependent on her, unable to leave her. She thought she had plenty of time to compensate him for the grievances he suffered. She never expected he had already sensed everything and was ready to strike back. Only now did Evelyn finally realize that Caleb would never apologize again. She would never receive another message from him. She took out her phone in a panic, swiping the screen, dialing Caleb's number over and over. But on the other end, there was always the cold, mechanical, electronic voice. "I'm sorry. The number you have dialed is busy. Please try again later." Evelyn felt like all her strength was drained. She stumbled back a step, hitting the edge of the bed. Julian woke up. Seeing Evelyn's pale face, he couldn't help asking worriedly, "Sis, what's wrong?" Evelyn didn't even look at him. She almost rushed out of the hospital room, forgetting her coat. The car sped along the road. Evelyn gripped the steering wheel tightly, fingernails digging into her palms, oblivious to the pain. She kept telling herself Caleb was just angry. As long as she explained, as long as she said she would compensate him, he would surely drop the lawsuit. They had been together for so long. He couldn't possibly really sue her. But the thought of Caleb's cold eyes made her heart feel like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, suffocating her. Finally arriving at the house, Evelyn pushed open the car door and almost ran inside. She took out her keys, her hands shaking so much she couldn't aim for the keyhole. It took several tries to finally open the door. The living room was pitch black. No lights were on. Evelyn hit the switch. Harsh light illuminated the empty house. Caleb's coat wasn't on the rack. The beige cushion he used was gone. The succulent plant he liked on the coffee table had vanished without a trace. She rushed into the bedroom. Only her clothes remained in the closet. Caleb's shirts, pants, all gone. On the desk, the sign language textbooks he used were missing. Only the useless psychological counseling materials she had bought for him were scattered on the table like a pile of trash. Evelyn walked to the balcony. The plants Caleb grew had all been moved, leaving only a few empty pots sitting lonely in the corner. She sat dejectedly on the sofa, still clutching the court subpoena. The house was quiet, so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Each beat carried a sharp pain. The bird had flown. Caleb was gone, taking everything that belonged to him, leaving cleanly. He left only a court subpoena to tell her that everything between them was over. She remembered how, after the mugging 3 years ago, Caleb was like a frightened bird, only finding peace by her side. She remembered him pulling himself together, actively seeing therapists while working hard to learn sign language. She remembered him countless times flipping through case files he would never use again, his eyes full of longing. Those scenes flashed through her mind like a movie, every detail terrifyingly clear. She suddenly realized she had never truly understood Caleb. She thought he was gentle and sensible. She thought he would always tolerate her indulgence of Julian. She thought he would never leave her. But she forgot. He was once the youngest associate at a big law firm, high-spirited in court. He had his own pride and bottom line. She had destroyed his pride with her own hands and trampled on his bottom line. Now he was finally fighting back. Evelyn picked up her phone and started dialing Caleb's number again, over and over, getting the same prompt every time. She tried calling via FaceTime audio, but no answer. She even contacted Caleb's former colleagues and friends, but they all said they hadn't heard from him in a long time. Like a lost child, she wandered around the empty house again and again, not knowing where to find him. Finally, she returned to the bedroom, which still held a faint trace of Caleb's scent. The vanity was empty, except for a small box sitting on it. It was the pet communication button Julian had given Caleb. She picked up the button. The cold touch against her palm made her suddenly recall the party, where Julian used this button to humiliate Caleb. She knew clearly it was humiliation, but to keep Julian happy, she acted as she always did, pretending nothing happened, not defending Caleb. Yet before they left, she had explicitly said she would stay by his side and not let anyone bully him. In the end, the one bullying him had always been her. She remembered the look in Caleb's eyes then. It turned out that from that moment, he was already utterly disappointed in her. Evelyn buried her face in her palms, suppressed sobs escaping her throat. Her heart felt empty, as if she had lost something vital that she could never get back. Meanwhile, at Audrey Blake's law firm, I sat at a desk, organizing materials for the opening of the trial. I knew I didn't need to do this, but I insisted. Audrey walked over with a cup of hot coffee and placed it in front of me. "Take a break. You've been organizing all afternoon." I looked up, a trace of fatigue in my eyes, but they remained clear. Picking up the coffee, I took a sip. The warm liquid slid down my throat, chasing away some of the chill. "I didn't expect you to target Evelyn Pierce first," Audrey said, sitting opposite me, looking at the documents on the table. Her tone held a hint of admiration. "Many people in this situation would think to go after the rival first. I thought you'd sue Julian first." I put down the cup and typed on my phone, "I will sue Julian too, but first, I have to deal with Evelyn. I hate Julian. I will never forget his madness and malice. But I won't forget that the cause of all this is Evelyn." Pausing, my fingers hovered over the keyboard before continuing. When I got involved in the mugging, Evelyn arranged it. When my vocal cords were removed, Evelyn signed the papers. When Julian humiliated and hurt me time and again, Evelyn enabled it. Evelyn always said she loved me, yet she destroyed everything I had with her own hands. She is the root of all this. Audrey looked at the words I typed, a wave of heartache appearing in her eyes. She remembered Caleb Reed in court 3 years ago, wearing a suit, stating his case with clear logic, eyes bright and firm. Now, he could only express his thoughts through text. The light in his eyes had dimmed, leaving only cold determination. "I understand what you mean." Audrey nodded. "Evelyn's enabling is more terrifying than Julian's madness. She turned her guilt toward Julian into harm toward you. Yet not only did she not realize her mistake, she felt she loved you very much. That is the most detestable part about her." I looked at the documents on the table, my fingertips lightly brushing over the words vocal cordectomy on a consent form. Memories from 3 years ago floated clearly before my eyes. I woke up in the hospital, severe pain radiating from my throat. I tried to speak but couldn't make a sound. Evelyn sat by the bed, gently telling me, "Caleb, don't be afraid. It's just hysterical mutism. You can't speak for now, but you'll get better soon." Back then, I foolishly believed her, thinking she would really find doctors to cure me. Until I heard her conversation with Chloe, I realized how laughably stupid I was. In the recording, Evelyn's words to Chloe were preserved. Transplanting Caleb's vocal cords to Julian was necessary because Julian made a mistake by setting that fire. But that doesn't stop me from loving Caleb. He's already paid the price. Even if he can never be a lawyer again, I will support him for the rest of his life. Support me for life? Sounds lovely. But I knew perfectly well that if Evelyn hadn't hired someone to remove my vocal cords, I would never have needed anyone to support me. I had my own career, excellent workability, and I could have done very well in the field I loved. I wasn't, and shouldn't be, a parasite that could only be kept by others. Evelyn stripped me of my most important thing, then stayed by my side in the pose of a savior. This was far more hateful than the deception itself. So, I must make Evelyn get the punishment she deserves. I typed this line on my phone with a determined face. Audrey nodded immediately. Don't worry. In court, I will make her pay for her actions. Our chain of evidence is complete now. The surgical records, the consent form, and the recording. These are enough to prove Evelyn's intentional injury. I nodded, a faint smile appearing on my face. For the first time in 3 years, I felt the darkness was finally passing. Time flew, and the day of the trial arrived. In the waiting room, I saw Evelyn again after many days. She looked haggard, with dark circles under her eyes. The trench coat that used to fit perfectly now hung loosely on her frame. Seeing me, her eyes lit up, and she walked over quickly. Caleb, can we talk? When she spoke, her voice was terribly hoarse, completely lacking her former composure. I looked at Evelyn coolly. My face held none of its past warmth, only icy calm. Evelyn was stung by this calm. Her eyes looked instantly wounded. Caleb, I know you won't change your mind about suing, and I'm not asking for leniency. I just wanted to talk to you. I've been looking for you these past few days. Audrey wanted to block Evelyn for me, but I shook my head and signed to Evelyn. Okay, let's talk. Walking with Evelyn to a deserted corner, she turned to face me, eyes full of pain. Caleb, I really never thought there would be a day we'd be facing each other in court. I gave a sarcastic smile, and I never thought my most trusted girlfriend would be the butcher who removed my vocal cords. Every word was like a knife, stabbing viciously into Evelyn's heart. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but found she had nothing to say. I know you hate me. She lowered her eyes, lashes casting shadows on her cheeks. It took a long while before she spoke, her voice low. But I had no choice. Before, I forced Julian to go abroad, making him miss seeing his mother one last time. I wronged him, so I tried desperately to compensate him. That fire. Julian said he wanted you to compensate him with your vocal cords. I was afraid he would react specifically and kill himself again, so I had to agree. The more I listened, the more ironic it felt. She wanted to compensate Julian, but why use my vocal cords to pay the debt? I signed rapidly. You wronged Julian. That is between you and him. You could use your money, your time to compensate, even your life. But it shouldn't have been my voice, my life. Evelyn's face turned paler. She reached out to touch my face. I turned my head to dodge, and her hand froze in midair. Caleb, I didn't consider it thoroughly. Her voice was tight. I just wanted to calm Julian down as quickly as possible. I thought you were sensible and smart. You would understand my helplessness. After your vocal cords were gone, I tried my best to compensate you. I took you to the best therapists. I was going to support you forever, let you live the best life. The best life. I interrupted her. My hands were trembling, making my signing choppy. Your so-called best life is ruining my career, making me face hundreds of doctors for useless treatments, making me live inside your lie of hysterical mutism, holding on to the hope that I could speak again while being a mute for life. Her lips moved, wanting to say something, but she was silenced by my neck signs. Evelyn, your guilt should never have been built on my pain. In court today, I don't want your apology. I want you to receive the punishment you deserve. Not wanting to stay with Evelyn any longer, I turned and left without looking back. Evelyn stood there, watching my determined figure leave, a decision slowly forming in her heart. The air conditioning in the courtroom was strong. I sat at the plaintiff's table, fingertips pressed against the cold edge. Audrey sat beside me and whispered, "Don't be nervous." I turned to look at her. Her eyes held certainty, just like the countless times in the past when we faced off in court and she was sure of victory. Infected by her demeanor, time seemed to rewind to when I was a lawyer at the firm. My heart gradually settled. The judge struck the gavel. The trial began. As the plaintiff's attorney, Audrey first submitted the evidence. The recording of the conversation between Evelyn and Chloe in the study clearly recorded Evelyn's crimes, hiring people to stage the mugging, removing my vocal cords, and so on. She admitted to all of it by default or directly. Then there were the surgical records and the consent form. The signature on the form was Evelyn's. The evidence was irrefutable. Your Honor, Audrey stood in the center of the court, her tone serious. My client, Caleb Reed, was lured to a crime scene 3 years ago by the defendant, Evelyn Pierce, under the guise of an accident. After being traumatized into disorientation by people Evelyn hired, his vocal cords were removed by doctors Evelyn arranged. For the following 3 years, Evelyn Pierce concealed the truth from my client and deceived him with fake psychological treatments. All the above evidence proves that Evelyn Pierce's actions constitute intentional bodily harm, and the circumstances are severe. I asked the court to sentence her according to the law. Evelyn's defense attorney immediately stood up to rebut. Your Honor, the defense reserves the right to believe these evidences are forged. The plaintiff, Mr. Reed, has been undergoing psychological treatment since that incident. His mental state is unstable. It is possible he hallucinated and forged evidence. Before he could finish, Evelyn suddenly interrupted him. The movement was slight, but it instantly silenced the entire courtroom. Evelyn raised her head, her gaze piercing through the crowd to land on me. Her look was complex, guilt, reluctance, and a resolve I couldn't decipher. No need. Her voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. If receiving punishment is the result Caleb wants, I will grant his wish. Her lawyer was stunned. He looked at Evelyn and whispered, Ms. Pierce, although there's a lot of evidence, we still have room for defense. It's not certain. No need. Evelyn cut him off, her eyes never leaving me. I did everything. I plead guilty. The judge paused, then asked, Defendant Evelyn Pierce, do you confirm you are voluntarily pleading guilty and waiving your right to defense? I confirm. Evelyn nodded. The corners of her mouth even hooked into a faint smile, as if she didn't know what awaited her after admitting to this crime. Sitting at the plaintiff's table, seeing Evelyn say she would grant my wish, my expression didn't change at all. Audrey coughed lightly beside me, speaking in a voice only we could hear. She makes it sound so deep and romantic. The evidence is solid. Her lawyer couldn't defend it anyway. Even if she didn't plead guilty, she'd be convicted. Putting on this show now. Who is she trying to impress? Hearing Audrey's words, I finally cracked a smile. Indeed, Evelyn now was just moving herself. It was no different from when she said she would support me for life. She had always been this kind of person. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. Evelyn Pierce was guilty of unlawful detention and intentional bodily harm. Combined punishment, 5 years in prison. When the bailiffs came to take her away, Evelyn looked back at me, her lips moving as if saying, Caleb, wait for me. I looked away, staring out the window. The sunlight outside was bright. The sycamore leaves glowed gold in the light, not as cold as the days before. Walking out of the courthouse, Audrey patted my shoulder. Let's go. Grab some food to celebrate simply. She took me to a cafe next to the courthouse. I used to come here after every trial I won. The owner saw me and paused, then smiled. Mr. Reed, you haven't been here in ages. How come you're here with Miss Blake this time? When did you two get so close? I smiled and didn't speak. Audrey answered for me. We've always been good. She glanced at me, then ordered 2 blueberry tiramisu, 1 hot cocoa, and add an Americano. I froze. Audrey ordered exactly what I used to order most frequently. I turned to look at her, but she acted oblivious, pointing to a window seat. Let's sit there. The owner quickly brought the tiramisu and Americano. I took a spoonful of tiramisu. The familiar sweet taste spread in my mouth. Time felt like it had returned to the past, except this time, the person sitting next to me was my former nemesis. Audrey was reviewing what happened in court. Finally, she concluded, I really don't know how you agreed to be with a hypocrite like Evelyn Pierce back then. Forget it. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Julian. Suing him next won't be easy. He's a celebrity. If we don't have absolute evidence to bury him, social opinion and his fans could become variables. I nodded. Aside from Evelyn being the direct source of my harm, what Audrey said was also why I didn't target Julian first. Currently, the evidence I had wasn't enough to completely destroy him. Things suddenly hit an impasse. Audrey and I finished the tiramisu in silence. The sunlight outside the window suddenly dimmed. Originally light clouds gathered into dark gray masses. Wind swept fallen leaves against the glass, making scratching sounds. Audrey looked up at the sky and stood, grabbing her coat from the back of the chair. It's going to rain. Let's go back. I nodded and followed her out of the cafe. Just as we pushed the door open, the cold wind wrapped in fine rain hit our faces, wetting the hair at my temples. Audrey handed me her briefcase to block the rain. Walk faster. It's going to pour. We walk along the sidewalk. As we passed an intersection, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw a car rushing from the right. The speed was like an out-of-control beast. In the rain curtain, the license plate was blurry. "Look out!" Audrey's urgent voice rang in my ear. The next second, her arm tightly grabbed my clothes with enough force to tear the fabric, yanking me violently toward the curb. I stumbled, my back hitting her chest, feeling her rapid heartbeat clearly. Ear-piercing screeching of brakes cut through the rain. Tires left long watermarks on the wet road. When I looked back, I only saw the taillights of the offending car disappearing into the rain. Audrey let go of me and immediately grabbed my hand to check. "Are you hurt? Did it hit you anywhere?" Her palm was warm, covering the back of my hand, which was freezing from the rain, sending a wave of heat. I shook my head, but my fingertips were still trembling. If that had been a second slower, I would have been hit. "Don't panic." I got the last 3 digits of the plate and the model. Audrey took out her phone, tapping the screen rapidly. "I'm calling the police. We absolutely cannot settle this privately." Her voice was steady, but I saw her knuckles turn white gripping the phone. Clearly, she was shaken too. "The driver did it on purpose," she added to the operator. The opposing light was red, but they accelerated suddenly when we crossed. I stood aside, looking at the blurred skid marks in the rain, my heart still racing. When that car rushed over, I clearly saw the person in the driver's seat look at me. The malice in that look was like a poison needle. About half an hour later, the police notified us they found the car. The driver was a girl in her early 20s, waiting at the precinct. When Audrey took me to the precinct, the rain had finally let up a bit. The fluorescent lights in the station were blinding. The girl sat on a bench, wet hair plastered to her cheeks, twisting the hem of her shirt. Seeing Audrey and me enter, her eyes flickered, then she lowered her head, pretending to be scared. "Officer, I really didn't mean to." Her voice carried a sobbing tone, shoulders shaking slightly. "The rain was too heavy just now. I didn't see the road clearly and accidentally hit the gas. I'm willing to pay. Medical bills, car repairs, I'll pay it all." The police officer nearby looked at her, then at us, his tone softening. "The young lady doesn't look like she did it on purpose. Rain really causes accidents. Mr. Reed, Ms. Blake, if there are no major injuries, you could settle privately and negotiate compensation." But I stared at the girl's eyes. Earlier at the station entrance, the moment she looked up, I saw that malice again. It wasn't fear, it was spite hidden under panic. I started to lift my hand to sign, but Audrey stepped in front of me, blocking the girl's view. Her tone was as cold as ice. "Private settlement is out of the question." She walked up to the girl, staring her down. "You said you didn't see the road, clearly? The surveillance shows you stopped at the intersection for 30 seconds. You only started the car when you saw Caleb Reed walking across, and you swerved specifically toward him, avoiding me. You call that an accident? That is clear intent to harm." The girl's face went paler, biting her lip in silence. Audrey squatted down, looking her in the eye, her voice carrying undeniable pressure. "At your age, you should be in college, right?" She paused, watching the girl's fingers tighten, and continued. "If you admit it was intentional, that's attempted aggravated assault. Even if you're a student, you'll have a criminal record. It will affect your education and future employment. You say it was an accident, but cameras and witnesses prove intent. If we insist on pressing charges, do you think a judge will believe you? So, you better tell the truth." Audrey's voice wasn't loud, but every word hit the girl like a heavy hammer. The girl's shoulders began to shake violently. Tears suddenly fell, not the fake sobbing from before, but tears of fear. "I'll talk. I didn't do it on purpose. But if you have to blame someone, blame him." She suddenly looked up, eyes red, pointing at me with anger. "He interfered in Julian's relationship, making Julian sad all the time. Before, he even deliberately provoked Julian into attempting suicide at the airport. When Julian told us he was safe in the fan group chat, he was so heartbroken. Everyone was furious, saying we had to avenge Julian. Today I saw Caleb Reed and realized he was the guy Julian posted in the group. Thinking of how Julian suffered, I couldn't hold back." The girl got more agitated as she spoke. "I thought I'd just scare him. I didn't expect." I stood behind, listening to her words, fists clenched tight. So Julian had been twisting the truth in his fan groups, painting himself as the victim of a relationship I ruined. Come to think of it, the stampede at the hotel, the voice I heard saying, "Is this the guy?" and the tripping, that was also Julian inciting his fans. 3 years ago, he framed me for arson to take my voice. 3 years later, he incited fans to hurt me. His malice had no bottom line. Audrey handed the girl a tissue, her tone softening. "Did you ever think Julian's words might be false?" The girl took the tissue, wiping her tears, looking confused. False? How could it be false? Julian is so pitiful. Audrey said calmly. Let's not talk about true or false yet. Julian knows he has many fans, yet he intentionally directed all hatred toward Caleb in the group. Didn't he know fans would resent Caleb? He knew, but he said it anyway. Not only did he say it, he posted Caleb's photo so you'd know what he looked like. He was deliberately inciting you to target Caleb in real life. The girl froze, seemingly never having thought of it that way. Audrey stood up. If you want a private settlement, fine. We don't need your money, but we need to borrow your account for that fan group for a while. The girl finally agreed. Audrey and I looked at each other, seeing the triumph in each other's eyes. The breakthrough we couldn't find before had finally appeared. For the next few days, Audrey and I organized the chat logs, proving Julian incited fans to violence. I guess right. The stampede was no accident. It was Julian's work. Julian must have learned about Evelyn going to prison. These past few days, he had been messaging me non-stop abuse. Caleb Reed, you bitch. My sister was so good to you, and you put her in jail. You're already a mute. How do you have the face to live? Why don't you die? I told Evelyn to break up with you long ago. She wouldn't. Now she finally knows who loves her the most. I didn't reply. I just found the trial recording, clipped the part where Evelyn pleaded guilty, specifically the line, if receiving punishment is the result Caleb wants, I will grant his wish, and sent it to him. After sending the video, Julian stopped messaging me. I thought he finally gave up, but I didn't expect him to counterattack in a more extreme way. Early that morning, Julian posted a long essay on social media. In the post, he painted himself as a victim of unrequited love whose relationship was intruded upon by me. Evelyn and I were childhood sweethearts. We were so happy until 4 years ago when Caleb Reed stepped in. He hurt me countless times, even using the proposal to push me to suicide. Now he forged evidence to send Evelyn to prison. I've endured too long. I don't want to endure anymore. Less than 2 hours after posting, it had over 100,000 reposts. The comments were occupied by his fans. My name became a trending topic. Tags like hashtag Julian Pierce Heartbreak, hashtag Caleb Reed Evil, and hashtag Justice for Julian were all followed by the trending icon. Even more terrifying, Julian's fans doxed me, releasing my photo with Homewrecker photoshopped over it across every platform. When Audrey rushed to my place, I was standing by the window, watching a group of people gathering downstairs holding Caleb Reed apologize signs. They looked up at my window, phone cameras pointed at me. I instinctively backed away, my back hitting the cold wall. Audrey pulled the curtains tight and handed me a hot cocoa. Don't be afraid. I contacted building management. They'll clear them out. But clearing the downstairs didn't clear the internet. I opened my phone. Every video was cursing me. Even former clients sent messages. Mr. Reed, I never thought you were this kind of person. You can't stay here anymore. Audrey looked at the people constantly arriving downstairs, her tone resolute. I'll take you to my old apartment building. Security is tighter, and no one knows you there. I nodded, letting her pack my bags. When the car drove into the familiar complex, I froze. Audrey's movements, turning and parking were exceptionally practiced, as if she had been here many times. I tapped on my phone to ask her. Her hand on the steering wheel paused. She said softly, a client lived here once. I came a few times. She didn't say more, but I couldn't help asking. Getting out of the car, she finally spoke slowly. That was 3 years ago. The client's name was Mr. Wong. His mother was bedridden. That day, a neighbor's house caught fire. Smoke drifted into his unit. His mother couldn't be rescued in time. She passed away. Caught fire. My heart skipped a beat. My fingers flew across the screen. Which day 3 years ago? Was it March 17th? Audrey froze. How did you know? March 17th. My birthday. The day Julian came to my apartment and set the fire. I would always remember that fire. The rolling smoke, the ear-piercing sirens. Julian hiding behind Evelyn, claiming I set the fire out of jealousy. That case. What happened? I typed, fingers white from pressure. Audrey sighed. Mr. Wong's home security camera caught the arsonist's profile. It was a young guy. But later, for some reason, the matter was suppressed. Mr. Wong had no way to appeal. In the end, he could only accept a settlement and let it go. My eyes went wide. I grabbed Audrey's arm, typing frantically to file. Is the file for that case still there? Audrey was startled by my reaction, but nodded quickly. It's in the firm's archives. Go back. We need to find it now. My fingers trembled with excitement, making typos. Seeing the obsession in my eyes, Audrey realized the importance. She immediately turned the car around and drove toward the firm. Along the way, my heart pounded wildly, torn between hope and fear. hoped to find evidence of Julian's arson, fear of facing the tragedy behind that fire. Dust had settled in the archives. Audrey dug for half an hour before finding the blue folder. I opened it impatiently. A printed screenshot from a surveillance video fell out. Although it was a profile, I recognized Julian instantly. So that day, not only did Julian frame me and ruin my voice, he also killed an innocent old woman. And Evelyn suppressed it all, letting him go free for 3 years. I told Audrey the truth about the arson. Only then did she understand why Mr. Wong had been stonewalled. She slammed her fist on the table in anger. This Julian Pierce is a monster. He hurt you, hurt others, and now he's stirring up storms online. Detestable. But regardless, with this discovery, suing Julian had an extra layer of guarantee. For the next few days, we organized evidence even faster. Audrey integrated the chat logs of Julian inciting fans, screenshots of cyberbullying, and the arson file. I recalled details, noting loopholes in Julian's lies on paper. As the chain of evidence grew complete, the online abuse peaked. Julian even started a live stream, crying to the camera, "I can't sleep. Thinking of Evelyn suffering inside hurts. Caleb, doing so many evil things, can you really sleep at night?" The comments were full of heartbroken for Julian, and Caleb is evil. I watched Julian's fake tears on screen, took a deep breath, and submitted the lawsuit to the court. News of suing Julian caused an uproar. His fans called us thieves, crying thief. His team issued a statement threatening legal action. But when Audrey released all the evidence online, the arson screenshot, the original chat logs of inciting violence, Evelyn's confession video from court, and Mr. Wong's testimony video, public opinion flipped instantly. Julian is an arsonist. He actually incited fans to cyberbully Caleb? Terrifying. We blamed Caleb wrongly. Julian's live stream couldn't continue. His account was flooded by netizens. Bronze canceled contracts. The Pop King, halo shattered completely. On the day of the trial, Julian looked haggard, stripping away all former glamour. He tried to deny it, but rendered speechless by the surveillance and testimony, he finally broke down crying. "Sis, save me." But Evelyn was in prison. She couldn't help him. The moment the judge announced the verdict, I sat at the plaintiff's table, watching Julian being taken away. What awaited him was 30 years of atonement. He looked back, glaring at me with venom. But I felt no thrill of revenge, only a calm of dust settling. Audrey patted my shoulder. "It's over." Walking out of the courthouse, the sun was shining. Audrey asked if I wanted coffee. I shook my head. She frowned, looking at me, then asked softly, "Evelyn and Julian have both received their punishment. Why are you still unhappy?" I looked up in surprise. I usually hid my unhappiness well. Evelyn couldn't detect it in 4 years. Audrey could. I hesitated, then typed, "Actually, Evelyn thought I set that fire. She suppressed it to protect me. Ironically, because of that, an innocent life was denied justice. Also, if not for me, Julian might not have been crazy enough to come set the fire, and the neighbor's mother wouldn't have died." Silence fell. I looked at Audrey. She suddenly punched my arm lightly. "What are you doing?" I signed. She could understand simple signs now. "I'm waking you up," Audrey said bluntly. The old Caleb Reed wouldn't wallow in self-pity. He would only say, "The fault isn't mine, but I will make the wrongdoer pay." I froze. That'd sound like something the old me would say. Back then, I was proud, daring to face injustice, refusing emotional blackmail. But 3 years of being mute had worn down my edges. Forced to apologize to Julian so many times, I had started to believe I was wrong. But the fault truly wasn't mine. Seeing I realized it, Audrey sighed in relief. "What are your plans now?" I thought about it and typed, "Maybe try to treat my throat, though I probably won't speak again." "In work." Audrey stared straight at me. "What do you want to do?" I hadn't thought about that. I always dreamed of being a lawyer. I never thought of anything else. Seeing my confusion, Audrey smiled and reached out a hand. "Why not come to my firm? Be a legal writer. It fits you perfectly." I thought about it. Indeed, I couldn't be a courtroom lawyer, but legal writing required high expertise. It suited me. So I reached out and shook her hand. "Pleasure working with you." While I successfully joined Audrey's firm, inside the prison, Evelyn Pierce could no longer stay calm. When the evening news broadcasted Julian's arson homicide and incitement to violence, Evelyn froze. She couldn't believe her ears until the segment ended. Only then did she realize it was true. Thinking of the fire 3 years ago, Evelyn's hands trembled uncontrollably. Back then, Julian cried and told her Caleb set the fire. She didn't doubt him for a second. After all, Julian was a singer. He wouldn't joke about his voice. After that, Julian claimed his throat was ruined and demanded Caleb's vocal cords, showing her medical reports on the feasibility of the transplant. She wasn't without suspicion regarding the report's authenticity, but she didn't dig deeper. At the time, she thought, even if the transplant was fake, even if Julian was throwing a tantrum, the fact remained that Caleb set the fire out of jealousy. Caleb wasn't innocent. Losing his voice was just punishment for arson. But now, the facts were before her eyes. The arsonist was Julian. Caleb did nothing from start to finish, yet he lost his voice. She knew Caleb's love for his profession. Only now did she understand why Caleb insisted she be punished. Her guilty plea in court turned out to be nothing but self-moving drama. But her self-righteousness went far beyond that. Evelyn remembered the aborted proposal, recalling how she threatened Caleb. For every day you don't apologize, the proposal is delayed by a day. Caleb had walked away without looking back. He was already prepared to fight back then. He never cared about her proposal. She remembered the party where Julian humiliated Caleb with the button, and she just said stop fooling around. She remembered the stampede, knowing it was Julian but pretending ignorance. She remembered forcing Caleb to donate blood right after discharge, saying, "This is the price." She remembered almost strangling him. It turned out she had hurt Caleb so deeply all these years. Evelyn squatted on the ground, holding her head, finally sobbing. Her cries echoed in the empty room, full of regret and despair. I didn't expect to see Evelyn again 3 years later. During her prison term, she often wrote to me. I didn't keep a single letter. All went into the trash. Later, I moved, and I didn't know if she kept writing. After work one day, I went to the cafe by the courthouse, ordered hot cocoa and an Americano, and texted Audrey. Got the coffee, waiting outside. As soon as I typed it, I bumped into a familiar, yet strange gaze. Evelyn stood under a sycamore tree nearby. Her coat didn't fit well anymore. Her hair was much shorter than before. Her jawline was still sharp, but her eyes lost their coldness, replaced by weary turbidity. She clutched her phone. The screen was on, showing a familiar wallpaper. It was a couple's photo we took years ago. Back then, I wanted her to use it, but she refused, saying it would trigger Julian. Now she was using it. I looked away, stepping aside, pretending not to see her. But she walked over, shoes crunching on fallen leaves. Caleb. Her voice was raspier than I remembered, carrying imperceptible awkwardness. Her fingers curled at her side. Long time no see. I looked up and signed. Do you need something? Perhaps it had been too long since she saw sign language. Evelyn froze for a while, not understanding. I took out my phone and typed it for her. She looked unnatural, pursing her lips. I got time off for good behavior. Released early. In there, I wrote you many letters apologizing. You never replied. I didn't know if you received them. So after getting out, I asked a friend for your whereabouts and found you here. I wanted to apologize in person. I'm sorry. I saw the news inside. I know Julian set the fire. I wronged you, thinking you weren't innocent, which is why I agreed to remove your vocal cords. And the things Julian did to you, I knew, but because I owed him and you're always so sensible, I subconsciously wanted you to endure the grievance. I thought a lot inside. I know I was terribly wrong. I promised myself that once out, I would compensate you properly. Whatever you want, I'll agree. Now that I'm out, can you give me another chance? I looked at her and typed. You only asked your friend where I was? Nothing else. What else? She paused. Else, I typed quickly, like the fact that I'm married. I raised my hand, letting Evelyn see the ring on my finger. It was a simple men's band. The matching ring was on Audrey's hand. In my second year at Audrey's firm, she confessed to me. She was shaking with nerves, but I wasn't surprised. For the moment she ordered my favorite tiramisu, I guess she liked me. Later she confessed she liked me even before we became rivals. I was energetic and sunny, a bright light in her boring work life. But before she could confess, I started dating Evelyn, then lost my voice and quit, until I emailed her in desperation, giving her a chance to stand by me again. Thinking of Audrey, I smiled sweetly. Evelyn was dazzled by my smile, a look of nostalgia in her eyes. Seeing this, I put away my smile and typed, I'm very happy now. I don't need your compensation, nor do I want to give you a chance. I only hope you won't disturb me. Just then, Audrey's car stopped in front of me. She rolled down the window. Seeing Evelyn, her brow furrowed slightly, but she quickly returned to warmth, reaching out to me. Why stand there? It's windy. Get in. I held her warm hand and got into the passenger seat. Audrey didn't look at Evelyn again, just buckling my seatbelt and taking a hot cocoa. Still hot. Not too late then. As the car drove away, I saw in the rearview mirror that Evelyn stood there, watching me leave, looking abandoned. What did she want? Audrey asked softly on the road, gripping the wheel tighter. I knew she was jealous. I turned, patted her hand with my free hand, and signed. Said she wanted to compensate me. I refused. She relaxed, holding my hand briefly. Next time, don't handle her alone. Call me. I nodded, leaning back, watching the street view, smiling again. What are you thinking about? Audrey asked, smiling so big. I signed, thinking about you. Thinking how cute you are, being jealous of Evelyn. You know what happened between us. There's no possibility. She laughed, ears turning red. I know, but seeing you stand together reminds me of when you were a couple and I was an outsider. Can't help getting jealous. My smile widened. Pulling into the parking garage, I opened the door when my throat suddenly itched. I covered my mouth and retched dryly. Audrey stopped the car instantly, supporting me nervously. Caleb, what's wrong? Is the throat condition worsening? She took out her phone. I'll cancel my trip tomorrow. Taking you to the hospital. I pressed her hand, shaking my head. I signed. I'm fine. Maybe drank the coffee too fast. Don't cancel work. The client is waiting. I'll go check myself. Don't worry. Audrey was still worried. Really okay? If you feel sick, call me immediately. I nodded, leaning into her arms, feeling her heartbeat. Actually, when I retched just now, a thought flashed through my mind. My vocal cords seemed to be making sound. The next morning, Audrey reminded me several times before leaving. She put my medical card in my bag and packed chocolates. You have low blood sugar. Don't go hungry. Send me the results. Okay, I signed, watching her leave reluctantly. I picked up my bag and walked to the hospital. Halfway there, the discomfort in my stomach surged again. Combined with low blood sugar, my vision went black and I fell sideways. Just as I thought I'd hit the ground, a hand caught my arm. Caleb, are you okay? Evelyn's voice rang in my ear, full of anxiety. I steadied myself, wanted to push her away, but had no strength. Seeing my condition, she helped me to a bench and took out water and bread from her bag. Eat something. You look pale. I hesitated, but ate the bread. The symptoms eased. I looked up at her. Why are you here? Mouthed/gestured. I just happened to pass by. Her eyes dodged mine. Going to the hospital? I'll drive you. It's on the way. I wanted to refuse, but I was weak, so I nodded. At the hospital, Evelyn insisted on staying with me through registration and queuing. When it was my turn, she stood at the door. I went in with the forms. The doctor checked my condition, flipped through old records, and suddenly looked up, smiling. Congratulations. The rehab exercises worked well. Your vocal cords are recovering. You'll be able to speak again soon. I froze, almost dropping the paper. Although I had guessed it, hearing the news was overwhelming. I could speak again. The doctor smiled and congratulated me, then looked at Evelyn behind me. Congratulations to you, too. Your husband will speak soon. Evelyn froze, looking awkward, clearly unsure how to react. I ignored her, waved to the doctor, and typed on my phone to show him, he is not my husband. The doctor coughed awkwardly. After giving me instructions, I took the report and walked out. Evelyn followed. At the end of the corridor, she suddenly spoke. Caleb, if those things hadn't happened back then, would the happy ones be us right now? I stopped, looked back, and slowly shook my head. Itipad, As long as Julian is in your life, no one with you will be happy. You were never the right match. When I first met Evelyn, Mr. Harrison warned me, get involved with them, and losing skin is the least of your worries. I didn't listen then, so I traded 4 years of pain and my career. But it's different now. Evelyn grabbed my hand urgently. Julian is in prison. He's not around me anymore. Come back, okay? I will love you properly and make up for everything. Before she finished, a sharp voice screamed from the side. Cease. What are you doing? Evelyn and I turned. Julian, in a hospital gown, hair messy, stood nearby. His face was pale, eyes still crazy. I didn't know why he was here. Maybe medical parole? Julian? Why are you here? Evelyn let go of my hand, shocked. Julian rushed over, staring at me with red eyes. Caleb Reed, you fox. You sent me and my sister to prison. Why is she looking for you after getting out? Why didn't she visit me once? His gaze fell on the report in my hand. He screamed like a maniac. Your voice is recovering? Caleb, what gives you the right to be happy? Suddenly, he rushed to a nearby waiting area, snatched a fruit knife from a family member peeling an apple, and lunged at me. I'll kill you. I'll make sure you're never happy. Caleb, look out. Evelyn reacted fastest. She shoved me away and blocked my front. The sharp blade pierced Evelyn's abdomen. Blood instantly stained her clothes. Julian froze. The knife clattered to the floor. He looked at his bloody hands, screaming and backing away. Sis, I didn't mean to hurt you. Why did you block for Caleb? People gathered quickly. Someone called for a doctor. I watched Evelyn fall, blood gushing. My heart was complex. I hated her, resented her, but seeing her take a knife from me, I couldn't help feeling shaken. Medical staff arrived. As Evelyn was wheeled into the ER, she looked at me, lips moving as if wanting to speak, but had no strength. I stood by the ER door, clutching the report, fingertips cold. After some time, a familiar figure ran over. Audrey. Seeing me, standing there, panic on her face, she walked fast but stopped a few steps away, eyes hesitant. Looking at her, I couldn't hold back. I went over and hugged her, tears wetting her eyes. Audrey relaxed, hugging me tight, patting my back. "It's okay, Caleb. I'm back. Don't be afraid." When I calmed down, I signed, "Why did you stop just now?" Audrey paused. I didn't dare come over. I was afraid. Afraid Evelyn, saving your life, would make you reconsider her. Never. I shook my head firmly. I was just scared. I thought I'd never see you again. No matter what Evelyn did, I won't consider her. I only have you in my heart. I handed the report to Audrey. Seeing the words vocal cord recovery, her eyes lit up, hands shaking with excitement, voice choked. "Caleb, you can speak." "That's great. That's great." The ER light turned off. The doctor came out. "The patient is out of danger, but needs ICU observation. The wound is deep, but luckily missed vital organs." For the next few days, I brought hospital meals for Evelyn daily. Sometimes Audrey came with me. Sometimes she pre-packed food for me. Meals were handed to nurses, so while Evelyn was in ICU, I didn't see her. Only when she moved to a regular ward did I see her again. Every time I delivered food, Evelyn looked at me with complex emotions, but never asked me to come back again. I stayed only a few minutes each time. Drop the food, leave. No extra words. After all, our grievances should have ended when she went to prison. Bringing meals now was just thanking her for the block. A month later, Evelyn was mostly recovered. When I went, she was packing. "Caleb, I'm leaving tomorrow." She looked at me, smiling faintly. The paranoia was gone, replaced by relief. I figured out. You were right. With Julian, I am not a good match. I hurt you too much. Taking a knife for you counts as a small atonement. I'm going to another city. I won't disturb you again. I nodded and signed. "I wish you well." Evelyn smiled, picked up her things, and walked out. At the door, she looked back once, then left resolutely without turning again. Standing in the ward, watching her disappear, I felt incredibly light. The pain, grievance, and hatred of those years finally dissipated completely. Walking out of the hospital, Audrey was waiting at the door, holding a hot coffee. Seeing me, she walked over and handed it to me. "How is it? Is Evelyn discharged?" I nodded, hugging her, feeling her warmth. The distant sunlight filtered through leaves, casting fragmented light on the ground. "Let's go home." Audrey held my hand, tone gentle. "Okay." I signed, mouth curving into a happy smile. On the way home, Audrey held my hand. "When your voice heals, let's go to the beach. You always wanted to see the ocean." I nodded, heart full of anticipation. The scent of osmanthus outside the window grew stronger. The sun was fine. The breeze was gentle. I knew all the haze of the past had scattered. In the days to come, there was Audrey, a restarted career, and our happy life. Story complete.